All right, I am joined by the Director of Business Development and Director of High School Showcase Program and Team Travel for North Bay Basketball Academy, Brock Winter. Brock, thanks for joining me. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on and giving us a little recap from our trip to Arizona recently.
Yeah, so for those who are wondering why we're doing this, NBBA brought a few teams down to Phoenix, Arizona for the West Coast Elite Arizona Fall Invite, which took place October 16th through 18th at a couple different facilities, and probably I think one of the first tournaments to be played. And everyone's kind of wondering, how do you do this during a pandemic? It's an indoor sport. Not a lot of, it's hard to socially distance, and so we'll get into kind of all that, how that was done, and what the protocols were, and how everything was run. But first, for those who don't know what NBBA is, kind of just tell people how it started, what the mission of the program is, and kind of give a little bit of a background about the program.
Okay. North Bay Basketball Academy is a full service year-round basketball program. We do skill development, teams, camps, individual training, pretty much everything in the game of basketball. Third grade all the way through high school is kind of our main market. And then we also have some kindergarten through second grade stuff, just trying to introduce them to the game. NBBA started in 2010. Rick Winter started it, who's my father, played for him at Marin Catholic. He had a pretty successful career, winning some NCS titles, MCAL titles, a couple state playoff appearances, and he pretty much wanted to grow the game of basketball and get kids more fundamental before they hit high school. So he pretty much reached out to the 10 coaches in Marin County after he had retired in 2010, kind of sat down with them, said, here's my vision, here's what I want to do. I want to help each and every program in Marin, and tried to figure out the best way to do that. And that, was fundamental based program, focusing on, an offense that's motion based, teaching the kids how to read and react to the game of basketball. And then on the defensive side, learning man to man and being able to put those man to man principles and those read and react fundamentals from the offensive side into whatever high school they end up going to. And then since then, we've reached into Sonoma County with Madison Lott, Nick Jacoby, Mike Washington, all being vital guys in the area, and then Tony Prescott leading our Napa region. So we're pretty much serving the North Bay now in 2020. But yeah, that's a little background on our program.
Were you surprised how quickly kind of it expanded and how popular it got, especially in the early days, because it's been around now almost a decade?
Yeah, I don't think my dad's vision in the beginning could have, thought of the size that we've grown to. Just probably in like an immediate area, we're probably the biggest program in the state of California and one of the biggest in the country. There's other programs that kind of reach into different states, but we're kind of stuck in this North Bay region. But yeah, it's been really successful. We've had some hurdles, with the fires in the North Bay region, with the PG&E outages every couple years. So we've gotten through, those kind of hurdles, and keeping kids active and keeping them exercising during especially the tough times right now with the pandemic, and doing it in a safe environment, especially with all of our younger grades, like doing outdoor clinics, social distancing, every kid brings their own basketball, a lot of skill work, and individual type of training. So hopefully those skills now get into the team aspect once we're back into the normal season, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on that. You obviously talked about the skill clinics and bringing your own basketball, to workouts or anything like that. When everything kind of shut down, second week of March, at that point, you guys are either starting or getting ready to start your spring season because, the high school season ends mid-February. And if your team makes NCS or NorCals, then it goes on a little bit further. But you're at that time either starting or getting ready to start your spring activity. So what kind of tell me about that time, and what kind of adjustments did you have to make kind of along the way, to where now you're actually starting to bring some teams down and play in actual games, but also doing skill work back home?
Yeah. So we pretty much shut down. We had 1 week of practices in most areas. Sonoma County and Napa County, I think, had 1 day of practice after they had finished their tryouts. Marin County had gone into their first week of practices, and then we did get shut down. During that shutdown, I mean, we pretty much didn't do any in-person stuff March, April, May, into the beginning of June. And then we started to do Zoom workouts over Zoom, and then we started to put together some workout packages that kids can do at home. Michael Turner, who's one of the best trainers in the Bay Area, works with all of our top level kids. He did a really good job of creating demonstration videos, writing workout plans that we sent out to kids and families just to keep them busy to do something at home outside of, staying inside playing video games, that kind of stuff that kids can kind of get caught up in these days. And then our Zoom workouts were a huge success. We decided to go the free route. We didn't charge for any of our Zoom workouts for March, April, May, or June. We kind of said, season kind of got shut down a little bit. We had hoped, I think as a lot of people, that the pandemic wouldn't be as long as it lasted. And we would send out updates about like our contingency plan. Okay, looks like March and most of April's done. So let's come out with a tentative schedule for maybe after Easter. And then we got pushed out even more. So we just kind of kept our free Zoom workouts going. And we did it more on a grade based than on a team level. And we had great turnout. Each kind of area ran their own Zoom workouts during that time. And then we got transitioned into the summer where the state allowed some outdoor summer day camps. We did 3-week long camps in Marin. So kids would come for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 consecutive weeks, to make sure they were in the same cohort. Same coach, same 12 kids for that period. Sonoma County had a little bit looser rules at that time, so they could go every week. Napa County kind of followed Marin County. And then we got into our fall skill program, which was allowed to be opened up a little bit more. We were able to go 2 days a week instead of 5 consecutive days. We'd have to go after school hours, since school is back in session and everything. But we've done a good job, and we've made it work with the skill development stuff and getting kids into clinics, getting them outside, keeping them active. I mean, our program serves kids of all ages and of all ability. I think we've done a good job making sure that we try and keep the ability and the age groups together throughout this entire time to help push kids and help them get better in the game of basketball. And then leading into your last part about bringing teams, we made the decision to just do 4 to 5 high school teams, recruitable athletes. We call them our showcase teams. We have one girls team that is comprised of some sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We've got my team that is an all senior group. Coach Turner's team has 7 sophomores and 2 juniors on it. And then Coach Denellen's team has 8 juniors on it. And then we got one more team with Coach DeMaestri. He's got a mix of 1 or 2 sophomores and then mostly juniors and seniors as well. So those teams, though, are recruitable athletes that we think can play at the next level, kids that want to work and get to the next level. And we just felt that we got to get some film for these guys because of how hard recruiting is right now during this, 2020, 2021 time period.
Now, for those who he mentioned, Coach DeMaestri, Jay DeMaestri is the head coach at Redwood High School right now, and then he mentioned Coach Doug Donnellan, who coached for a long time at Drake High School. So just kind of give you the full name there. What did you think at the West Coast Elite Fall Invite? What did you think at the overall competition at that tournament? Because you had a lot of teams that are on different levels of playing field. We obviously saw a lot of teams from California coming in to play there because obviously California is on stricter restrictions than most states. And just kind of what did you think of the level of competition across the age group from all the teams that competed as far as NBBA?
First, the one thing I want to stress and talk about before we get into the competition level is like West Coast Elite did a phenomenal job with their protocols and safety protocols. Like every kid, every person that came into the gym was wearing a mask. Everybody temperature checked before they got in. I saw them numerous times reject people that temperature was above what their standard was, made them wait for a couple minutes because it was hot outside, and then would read temperature check them. They did I think, which is a hard thing as a tournament director, is not letting teams into their games until about 10 minutes before tip-off. They did a good job where if it was a 5 o'clock game, the 5 o'clock game would finish at about 5:45, 5:50. They'd clear the entire gym. At one gym, from what I saw, they did have a cleaning crew that would wipe down the benches or spray down the benches with whatever cleaning products they were using at that time. And then they would wait till that whole gym's cleared out, and then they'd bring in the next group right before that game. So I do want to give them a lot of credit there. And a program that we trust and we talk to and we have a good partnership with. So we were really happy with what they did. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to be going back in November. But competition level. So we ended up having 4 teams at this event. We had one girls team. They had one 17U division. Our girls team had great competition the whole weekend. Played in a lot of close games. Were pushed in a couple games. Couple games came down to the last possession, so we were really happy there. From the boys' side, we had teams in all 3 levels: bronze, silver, and gold. Our gold team, which was a combination of Coach Donnellan's junior team and my senior team, we ended up having 10 guys with 6 seniors and 4 juniors. I don't think we could have asked for a better competition level. We played in 2 games that came right down to the last possession, and then we played a team from down in Southern California, and they were high-level athletes, gave our kids a good look into, how you get to the Division I level and how you become a Division I athlete. And then playing West Coast Elites, Under Armour affiliated team, not their full roster. They had a couple kids that have already committed, so they decided not to play them. But from what I saw, all 9 guys that were on that roster had Division I offers. They had a freshman on that roster. They had a couple sophomores, a couple of juniors, and a couple of seniors. It gave the North Bay kids the opportunity to see what high-level Division I talent looks like, and I don't think we could ask for anything more from that perspective. And then our team in the silver and bronze division, Coach Turner's team was in the silver division. They had some good games. They struggled a little bit. Technically, they were playing up since they're mostly sophomores playing against juniors and seniors, so it was a good level for them, especially because all of those kids on his team played varsity as freshmen. And then Coach DeMaestri's team had good games, and we're going to bump them up one level. I think West Coast Elite did a good job putting teams into the correct level without knowing what the level of basketball was going to be like since we've been off for 5-6 months. So I don't think anybody can complain for the games that they got over the weekend in any of the divisions.
Now, there's some players that I kind of want to go through really quickly that I noticed throughout, not just this past weekend, but obviously from when I've seen them in high school, and then if there are any other players that you want to mention, we'll do that as well. I want to start off with Drew Kilrich from Maria Carrillo. The last time I saw him, he was it was when he was playing at Carrillo, and when I noticed him now, it's just like he just got big, and he really, he's been working hard. I know he's been working hard with Madison, and just kind of tell me what you think of him as a player. What do you think his ceiling is at Carrillo and also with NBBA?
Yeah, Drew came to us as, I think his first year was as an 8th grader, and kind of taller, skinny kid, could really shoot the three. I don't think was entirely comfortable dribbling the ball, shooting off the dribble or getting to the rack. I think more of his comfort level was catch and shoot threes. And Madison has done just a tremendous job with him. He's really expanded his game. He's become much more physical, which I think talks to Drew's hard work and dedication of getting in the weight room and trying to gain some more muscle on his body. He also works with Mike Turner, and I think the combination of what Madison and Mike have done have really helped him expand his entire game. And when I saw his team play over the weekend in Arizona, the things that I noticed were he was much more comfortable being inside and banging around and crashing the offensive glass and finishing around the rim, not just that catch and shoot three kind of guy. And I think what he's done from a lateral and an athletic standpoint is he struggled to stay in front of guys defensively. And I think he has done a really good job right now doing that and being able to guard a couple different positions. Obviously being most comfortable guarding probably 3s and 4s right now. For his ceiling, I think, it depends on if he stretches out a little bit more and if he keeps putting some weight on as in muscle and gets a little bit quicker and more athletic and can kind of be a little bit more being able to guard the 2 through 4 position and every once in a while getting switched onto a 5 and being able to bang that guy. But I think he's going to be a really good player for Maria Carrillo, and I think him and Austin are gonna work really well moving forward for them. And I think they're gonna be one of the surprise teams in Sonoma County this year. And that I think they kind of get slept on a little bit, and I think they're gonna make some noise in league this year.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, especially them being brought up to the Oak, and you obviously have the big time teams of Newman and Montgomery and Piner, and Healdsburg has been dominant over the last 3-4 years or so. So that's going to be an interesting race. The second player that I want to mention is Gavin Vogensen. I hope I said that right. From the aforementioned Healdsburg High School. And I remember speaking to his high school coach during the summer about him. And, he told me that Gavin was just a guy that was scrappy. And he was a guy that dove on the floor for loose balls and trying to get the extra edge and extra possession. And I kind of was able to see a little bit of that a few weekends ago. What do you think about Gavin? And he's going to be teamed up with Dylan Heyman for another year at Healdsburg, along with a couple other young stars that Healdsburg has up there.
Yeah, so Gavin Vogensen, he's really done a good job as well of kind of expanding his game. I think he's been really comfortable straight line drive to the rim and then really comfortable catch and shoot threes. He's done a good job being able to get his handle right and becoming, I don't know if he's going to be more, I don't know what Healdsburg going to do with him this year. I don't know if he's going to be more of a point guard for them or an off guard. but he's shown the ability to be able to handle the ball against pressure. When he lets the game come to him and doesn't force too much, he's a problem. And I think that his experience he got last year playing varsity, and I think he started pretty much every game for Healdsburg as a freshman, really helps him be successful at the travel level and going in and competing against those top level type of teams that are maybe a little bit older. He's also stretched out a little bit. I think he's, up to like 6'2" now, where I think last year he was playing more at like 6 feet, 6'1". Another guy that when he starts to work on his foot speed and he can be a really good defender. He's smart. He plays angles really well. And I know he works with Coach Turner 2 to 3 days a week, depending on, his availability. Another guy that has like totally dedicated himself during this quarantine to getting better and not being complacent. I think you can see a lot of kids that are freshmen in high school and be on varsity as a freshman and say, oh, well, I'm on varsity as a freshman. I'm good enough. And Gavin doesn't take that route. And I think having Dylan as that kind of mentor for him and being able to work out with Dylan, whether that's in the weight room or whether that's with Coach Turner during workouts, I think has really done a good job and pushed him. And I think that Healdsburg, another school that I don't know if they're the favorite to win the Oak, but I think they're one of the favorites to win the Oak with the roster that they bring back from last year. Obviously, losing I think Wittick and one other guard is going to be big for them because Wittick was a big time defender for them. And I think if Gavin can kind of take over that role, that's going to be big for them.
Yeah, it's gonna be an intriguing league, and with Healdsburg and Cardinal Newman, they obviously have Travis Taylor in there now. Montgomery has a new coach. Pioneer's a defending league champ. Talked about earlier how Carrillo could sleep up on some people. Santa Rosa always plays hard. Madison always gets those guys to play hard. So it's going to be an intriguing league. Any other players that from either Jay's team or Mike's team that you wanted to mention? Just give them a shout out or think that people will start to notice over the next few years.
Yeah, I think so. From Jay's team, we've got we have 2 Cardinal Newman kids playing with them. Zeke Grund, he's a crafty little point guard, can really shoot the ball. He played really well this past weekend or a couple weekends ago when we were in Arizona. And then Jay's got a couple guys that played on that team that are from his high school, Bodie Jelling and Dom Wiley, both going to be starting guards for him. Dom started for him last year. Every once in a while, kind of mix and match throughout the year. And his athleticism has just gone through the roof. And he looked really good this past weekend in Arizona. And then Bodie's just like a steady, very fundamental player. Bodie's been in our program since he was in 3rd grade. And he's really growing his game, and he's got some D3 schools looking at him. So I think he'll be a good player for Redwood this year. And then the last guy on Jay's team, Charlie Treen, I think is in for a huge year for Redwood. Charlie plays on Coach Donnellan's team and will be in the next event. But he's like 6'7" now and absolutely strokes it from the 3 and has, been putting on weight. I think that was one of the things that he really needed to do was put on some more weight. He was a little bit thin, and he's going to be a matchup problem for a lot of teams, and I know Jay usually plays in the Cardinal Newman tournament. I don't know if they're going back this year, and he also played in the Napa tournament last year. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be interesting to watch Charlie's game grow because he was more of a probably 6th, 7th, 8th guy for them last year. And I think he's going to be one of their main contributors this year and one of their main scorers. Um, and then from Turner's team, another Healdsburg kid that plays for them, Graham McDonald, the big kid. He bangs and he's not afraid of contact. And I think he struggled a little bit in the first game with finishing around the rim. But as the weekend went on, he kind of got back into his basketball shape and played pretty well. Does a good job on the help side, blocking shots and then getting back to his man and clearing the glass. And he makes the right play when he's inside. And I know hopefully we can get him some more post moves to be a little bit more versatile on the block, and being able to maybe stretch out and help Yasha and hit some shots away from the basket. But he looked good this weekend as well. And then just two other guys that I want to mention from Turner's team that are both play in Marin. Ben Jenkins from TAM, probably the fastest guard in our program. Can get a little out of control at times, but he is an absolute stud when he stays on the floor and stays out of foul trouble. He played for TAM last year as a freshman, should be their main guy this year. Has really done a good job being a more consistent three-point shooter, which makes him really tough to guard with his speed and his craftiness to get to the rim. And then the last guy, Ains Fish from Redwood, another Redwood kid. I think at times was Redwood's best player last year as a freshman. Showed flashes, and I think he's growing his game a little bit more. He's been hitting the three pretty consistently. He's about 6'4", 6'5", depending on what you ask him. And but yeah, Turner's group is a good core group of sophomores, and then you've got Graham sprinkled in there as their big guy. And I think if they can stay together the next few years, and I think you're going to see a lot of those kids be the top players in the North Bay area.
Yeah, definitely a lot of talent on those teams, and it's just so hard coming off of a 6-month break from actual in-game game speed competition. It's so hard to kind of go back there and expect like perfection and expect high level of play. The last one of the last players, I have a couple more, but I wanted to get to Jalea Wiggins from your girls team, which is coached by Zach Borello. And she goes to Branson. Zach is the head coach at Branson, head women's coach. And if you didn't see the Cal High Sports piece on her, look it up. It's great. It's on the NBBA's Instagram page. It's really great. It kind of tells the story of how her brother was tragically killed in a car accident last June, and how she's kind of rebounded from that and kind of made basketball her therapy, so to speak. So check out that story. But I've heard big things about her on the court, and she's definitely one of the top players in the area, top women's players. What have you seen out of her, and have you talked to Zach? Maybe what's he seen, because now he's coached her both the high school level and in the travel level.
Yeah, she's pretty much our main piece on that team, along with a couple other girls. She plays defense at some of the highest level I've seen at basketball at the high school level, at both, whether it's men's or women's. She seems to get a hand on every single pass, and she does a great job pressuring the ball without fouling, and she does a really good job turning people over. And offensively, she, I think, is a more of a creator first, kind of get to the rim type of player, and has been working on really developing that outside jump shot at a more consistent level. Zach obviously loves her, with being his point guard at Branson, and then also being our point guard on this 17U team. I think she's done a good job at staying on top of her game during quarantine, just as these other players are. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing as a separator right now is the kids that are working on their game and putting in the time and effort to really get better. And she's definitely one of those players. I think she should end up as a guard, as playing at the Division I level at somewhere. I think, like I said, the jump shot needs to be a little bit more consistent to get to that level, but she's trending towards that level. And she's also, been doing a lot of these like showcases and really has stood out at those events. And then just one other, Hannah Golan, who's also at Branson, who had an absolute dominant freshman year. She was first team all league as a freshman, and I think she averaged like 18 and 10 as a freshman as well. She can be really good, and I think she can be one of the top players out of this area. A lot depends on, obviously, she's still got 3 years left, so she's got a lot of time to develop, a lot of time to expand her game. But she's really physical, and she crashes the boards hard. She's really improved her ball handling. I think another piece that Zach really wants to see is her becoming a more consistent jump shooter. I think she's gotten a lot better from the jump shooting standpoint. But if she can be a knockdown shooter, I mean, she's going to be a problem. And I think she kind of is tracking towards the Kylie Horsemeyer type of player. I think Kylie is obviously a legit, all-state level player. And I think she's already committed and going to, college next year. But like, I think Hannah is on that path. I think they kind of remind me a lot of each other from what I've seen at when Kylie was a freshman and when Hannah was a freshman. So it's going to be exciting to watch them kind of develop over the next few years. And yeah.
Yeah, a couple of great players. And I actually talked to Kylie in a previous episode to talk about that. She'll be going to University of San Diego after her senior season. Now let's get to your team and the team that was coached by yourself and Doug Donnellan. And so there are 4 players that I want to highlight that there are a couple of them that really surprised me this weekend, and then there are a couple others that I wanted to talk about from who I've seen them play as high school players. And the first one is Dylan Heyman, who is one of the top players in the area. And it's so funny because we competed against him when Coach Jacopi and head coach Scott Bears was the head coach of Petaluma. And at that time, Petaluma Healdsburg were in the SCL together. And that was Dylan's freshman year. And we played them 3 times. And the first 2 times we played them, he was locked down both times. And then the third time he comes out and just lights us up in the playoffs. He had a huge game and they knock us out of the league playoffs. And now he's just grown into just this monster of an athlete. What did you see from Dylan? He had a very nice weekend in Phoenix, and he seems to be on a fast track to becoming a really solid Division I player.
Yeah, Dylan is probably one of the biggest sleepers in Northern California, being a 6'5" wing, and hopefully transitioning that to like a 2 guard as well, being able to play the 2 and 3. I think he had a really good weekend. I think the first game, I think he would tell all of us that he didn't play up to his level, and struggled a little bit, and had an incredible back-to-back bounce-back games. I think he had like 12 in the second game against a really good team from Southern California, Prodigy, which is ran by Tracy Murray and Cameron Murray, and then followed that up against Cali Rebels Elite out of Southern California as well. And I think he scored 9 of our first 11, and he scored 18, I think, overall in that game. And he did a really good job defensively against their top guy. He's another guy that from when we started talking to college coaches in the spring, getting ready for our spring travel season and getting ready to get them recruited and everything. Coaches loved his versatility. They loved his athleticism. They want to see a little bit more ball handling, and they wanted to see a little bit more consistent 3-point jump shot. I think he proved this past weekend that he can hit the three consistently. He did a good job hitting the three off the catch, off the dribble, even off of some some one-on-one moves. He had a couple step back threes as well. And I think he's really just flourished over this past, 6-month period where we were all kind of in limbo. And another guy that just has been dedicated and working his ass off, training with Turner twice a week, training by himself at home in his front yard, just in his driveway. Like, the kid wants to get better. He's always improving. I think he's definitely going to end up being a Division I player. We've been hearing from some Patriot League schools, some WAC schools. I know he's been talking to some schools in like the Big West, I believe. So he's definitely got the interest. I think the biggest issue right now is the pandemic, and with Division I approving waivers for kids, it's made recruiting very interesting. And especially at those level schools that have been recruiting them, those aren't like your high budget, Power 5 schools. Those are more of your mid-major academic type of schools. And those, I think, are the schools that are kind of getting hurt the most by this pandemic with budget cuts. And so I think it's going to be an interesting few months to see where his recruitment goes. He has the interest. He's been getting a lot of media attention. He had a couple articles. He was mentioned in a couple articles from the tournament. Simply Basketball has been covering him for the last few months. Mm-hmm. He's been, in the media. He's been working out on his own. He's been doing everything you ask for a kid to do. Now it's just trying to get that offer somewhere. And I think there's, we have good contingency plan too. If the Division I thing doesn't work this year, I think prep school could be a really good option for him. A lot of kids have been doing that lately. And, we're looking more New England prep schools, hopefully, versus like the basketball prep schools on the West Coast. I think that he would get a good academic experience at those schools. And then he would also get playing in front of like the Patriots, the Ivies, those type of schools, which I think he could be really successful at. So we're happy with his development. We're happy with where his recruitment is at right now. We're hoping we can get some offers coming soon for him. But I think you're going to see him be even better than he was last year, which I think is pretty impressive, leading Healdsburg to, I think, 25-4, losing to St. Mary's in the NCS quarters, who ended up going to the state championship before the season got canceled. Yeah. It's going to be interesting watching Healdsburg, the small school, playing kind of in like the big school league.
Yeah, and the past 3 years, they've won 3 league titles in a row. They've won the SCL, and then they've won the last 2 NBL Redwood titles. And so now we'll see. It'll be intriguing, like we've been talking about, how that league goes. But you talked about the recruiting, kind of how it's in limbo with the waivers and the Division I granting extra years of eligibility to winter athletes, and that affects guys like Heyman and Austin Ehrlicher, who we're going to talk about now. And do you think that could put them and people in that class at a disadvantage, knowing that there could be athletes that take advantage of that extra year at their colleges, and now there's not that extra spot available that perhaps they were envisioning at a specific school that they were being recruited?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think from the conversations I've had with college coaches at the D1, D2, D3, NAIA, JC level, even, like, it's hard to recruit right now because A, you don't know, who's going to take advantage of that waivers. B, there's going to be kids that accept waivers and then also transfer. And then C, you're trying to figure out, okay, if I have a senior right now that, maybe our season, maybe it's a conference only season, just for a hypothetical. Maybe it's a conference only season. Like maybe that kid has a good job that's already lined up for when he graduates from college. Like, is that kid gonna come back or is he not gonna come back? So I think what you're gonna see is a lot of 2021 kids get recruited late, and the recruitment is going to extend all the way through to even May of next year, and maybe even June, depending on what kind of school it is. So I think that's what the struggle is right now. Is we got to try and keep the interest of the kids, and then hopefully as these college seasons start to take place and go along, they get a little bit more clear idea of how many roster spots they're going to have, if they're going to be looking more for transfers or if they're going to be looking for 4-year guys, incoming freshmen. So it's going to be an interesting process coming up. And I don't envy any college coach's job right now, because they're in a tough spot just from like making sure their guys are engaged and working out still, but also making sure that they're setting up their team for success for the next couple of years.
Now, I mentioned Austin earlier, kid from Marie Carrillo, and watched him play as a sophomore, and I remember that he was just the guy that could shoot the lights out, and I was kind of really impressed by him over the weekend, a few weekends ago, and I thought that he's really kind of expanded his game a little bit and is starting to become a more all-around player for the Pumas of Carrillo. How do you think his game has really come together over the past few years, from expanding to not just being a shooter, but someone who can shoot at other areas of the floor, and then helping him transcend his defense to where he can be a lockdown defender?
Yeah, so Austin came to us in March, and he was actually not going to play because of baseball. There was we had some conflicts with like our major our big tournaments, and baseball being a conflict. I think there was a lot of baseball games scheduled for weekends. But so I watched Austin. I never had met Austin until about a month ago. I had watched him, seen him play a couple times at Carrillo. Like you said, he was a lights out shooter, knockdown shooter. I don't think he was very comfortable putting the ball on the deck. And I think this past weekend, or a couple of weekends ago, he showed he can put the ball on the deck. He has a really, deadly one dribble pull up jumper that he kind of went to a lot this past tournament. And the other thing that I was like extremely surprised and excited about, his athleticism is off the chains. Like he had a pin block, a chase down block that was pretty incredible, and was on his highlight video. And he's pretty versatile. He's about 6'4", 6'5", can guard multiple positions. I think we asked him to guard all the way from point guards to 4 men during the weekend. He's strong enough to guard the bigger, more inside guys, and then he is athletic enough to stay in front of the quick guards. And I think he's a really good, candidate for like an NAIA D2, high level D3 type of school. I think that's kind of where his sweet spot is. And I know I talked to a coach for about an hour over the weekend about Austin. They're interested in them from back east. And then there's a couple NAIA schools that have shown some interest. And then we're going to start reaching out to some more, West Coast D2s and NAIAs. I think he's kind of more comfortable staying on the West Coast. But his development from when I saw him play even last year for Carrillo, like as a junior, he has really grown his game. And I think that's a common theme about all these kids that we're talking about today is when you put in the work and you're dedicated about getting your body right and getting your game right, you don't need games. You don't need to play games every weekend. Yes, we want to mix games in, obviously, but the skill development part is just as important as the game aspect. And I think he's another kid that has shown that this quarantine, this lockdown, whatever we want to call it, he's used that to his advantage to expand his game to more than just, being a lights out shooter, being able to hit from the mid range, being able to get to the rim and challenge guys at the rim and try and get, to the free throw line. So we were really happy with how he played this past weekend.
Yeah, two more players I want to get to. I mean, we could go down the line of all these players, and I wish we both had the time to do that.
Yep.
But unfortunately, we don't. But there are two other players that I want to touch on, and then if there are any others you want to bring up, we can certainly do so. Dom Gurish is someone that I've been watching since he was a freshman, obviously, and I really got to watch Sonoma a lot this past season. And one thing I noticed from his freshman to his sophomore year is he got a lot bigger, and he really improved his offensive skills. And he was more than just a shooter. He was able to drive and get to the rack, and really improved defensively, I thought, as well. What do you kind of see his biggest challenge that he'll need to work on to become a more complete player going into his junior and senior years at Little Sonoma, where not a lot of people pay attention to, but for him to get noticed at a college, probably D1, D2, wherever he may end up, what's the biggest thing you think he'll need to work on in order to reach that level of play?
His defensive intensity, I think is one thing. And then, I think his toughness on the defensive end, not saying he isn't a tough player, but I think this weekend was a good eye opener of what Division I guards look like. And I think he understands, and I know he's had conversations with Coach Danellen, who does a great job giving our guys points of emphasis to work on and moving forward. And I think you saw that. He played with Doug as a freshman. He had a big time sophomore year. He took to heart what Doug, gave him and what areas he needed to improve upon. And I think he's going to take another jump this year, and especially on that defensive end. And we've also talked about him being more recruitable as a point guard rather than, a combo guard. And so, he's taken that to heart and looking to improve being able to be a point guard and distribute. And I think that something with, Austin, Dylan, and Dom, in that at their high schools, for their high schools to be successful, they got to score the ball. They got to be a threat to score the ball. But and then when they transition into the travel, kind of aspect, they can, we have a ton of talented guys around them as well. And so like being more complete players and looking to be more playmakers. And I think all three guys, as the weekend went on, kind of showed that they can be playmakers as well as scorers. And I think Dom, he's like a 4.6. I might even be selling him short on that. He's like a high level student.
Yeah.
Already looking to get into some type of engineering or computer science. He's got his mind right on the academic side, and which I think is going to be very intriguing to a lot of schools. He's going to be, I think he's going to be a big Ivy League kind of target for schools. And then just depending on how he develops, maybe he can get to a higher level of, maybe sneaking into that Power 5. A lot depends on what happens moving forward.
Right.
But I think he, is going to be a good candidate for either like that high academic, top 15, top 10 Division III type of school, or that Ivy League type of school, which the Ivy League the last couple of years have shown is just a notch below the Power 5 conferences. I think they've turned themselves into a really high level athletic conference, and I think Dom knows where he needs to get from the conversations he's had with all of our coaches, whether that's with Turner in trainings, whether that's with Doug, who's coached him, or whether that's me through the recruiting process. And I think he's going to have a good year, hoping that we have a season this year. And I think, Sonoma for the next 2 years is going to be on the map for schools in the area that will be at the top.
Yeah, I've been very high on Sonoma, and was high on them last year. I'm going to be very high on them the next 2 years. I think they're one of the top teams in that Vine Valley athletic league. And you had mentioned the academic part with Dom and how he's, we'll call it at least a 4.6 student. So we're not selling them short, but and that's a lot of things that that's a lot to deal with, and coaches are looking for that guy that I don't has the academics along with the talent. A lot of people don't really think about that, but that's usually one of the standards if you want to get recruited. Whatever the sample GPA is. Most coaches that I've talked to, they said, oh, well, some say 3.0 or above, some say 2.5 or above, some say they want it higher. So having that academic portion in there is truly a huge thing. And for anyone that's younger, might as well start now and kind of get into that rhythm and get into that work ethic, so that they can have that opportunity to get recruited at a school that they'd be interested in. Final player that I want to talk about, it was a late add to the roster, Nick Greenwood, from Marin Catholic. And he was another kind of guy like Gavin who was scrappy, and he shot the ball really well and held his own against some guys that are a lot bigger than him. But I thought he played really well over the weekend, and obviously has some great coaching at his high school with Mike Saya, and then obviously playing with Doug Donnell this past weekend. What do you think of Nick going into his junior and senior seasons at Marin Catholic?
So Nick has been in our program since third grade, played for Turner for 5 years, and then played Lake Show a little bit, and then has come back to us. Gamer. That's the best way to describe him. Like, he's just an absolute gamer. You put him on the floor, he's going to work his ass off. He's going to play as hard as he can on the defensive end, and then he's going to shoot the lights out on the offensive end. I would say he's probably one of the top 3 shooters in all of Northern California. When he's on, he's hard to stop. And, what I said about him to West Coast Elite during an interview, crafty guard, he's got the ability to score at all 3 levels. This past weekend, or whenever we played, he did a great job where he hit a couple threes, and then he used that to his advantage. And whether that was pump fake, one dribble pull up, or pump fake, attack, kick out to the shooter. And I think all 3 of those things were kind of highlighted on his highlight video as well. Like, he hit a couple threes, went into that pull-up jumper at the end of the game in our first game. In our last game, got to the rack, help defense came, hit it out to Logan Knopfman, who knocked down the 3 from Vintage. And so he's growing. He was huge for Marin Catholic down the stretch. I still remember, being at the St. Mary's game. They dug like a 20-point deficit, and Nick was one of the main reasons they cut it to 2 in the fourth quarter. He got after it defensively. He's super scrappy. Yes, his size can be a detriment at times, but he at least works when he gets posted up to try and at least tip the ball or get around, just so that either the ball goes out of bounds and we can get back into our defensive set, or he at least challenges the guys to score over him, which we love. And I think he's in for a very nice year at Marin Catholic. I think Marin Catholic and Branson are probably the top 2 favorites for MCAL. Marin Catholic returns, 2 first team, or a first team all-leaguer and a second team all-leaguer. And I think that's going to be huge for them as well, with Kyle Winters coming back as well. So excited to kind of see his growth, and he's been getting D3, and Nick's been getting a lot of D3 interest, and he'll end up playing at the next level somewhere, for sure.
Yeah, and the last two guys we talked about, Dom and Nick, both have 2 high school seasons left. Hopefully, they play their junior season, so they have a little bit more time than maybe Dylan or Austin. Um, any other players that we may have missed that you want to briefly kind of discuss? And maybe you had mentioned Logan earlier. There are guys from all over really the North Bay, from Napa, Marin, and Sonoma County. Any other guys that fans should be on the lookout the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, let's I think Anders Matheson, big 3-point shooter from Sonoma. He's going to be a key part for Sonoma's run moving forward. One guy that we didn't touch on, or two guys that we didn't touch on, that I think are going to be key pieces to their high school teams are Logan Nothman from Vintage, who I just mentioned. Another like 4.8 student, and is getting interest from some high academic D3 schools. And, he's just a very cerebral, smart basketball player, doesn't tend to make many mistakes, gets guys involved, and knocks down the open three when you need him to knock that down. And then the last, we had a couple other guys on this team. I want to give each of them at least a shout out. Liam Kilroy, who actually went to San Domenico and transferred to Branson. He's going to be big for Branson once he's eligible to play off of his transfer. He's going to be a key part to being able to stop AJ at Marin Catholic. And I think that's going to be the big matchup for them, is how do they control AJ? And then Braden Greenlee from Napa. I think this weekend showed that he's not just a shooter. I think a lot of people just think he's a shooter. And I think he did a good job playmaking, especially in our second and third games, getting guys involved. He plays with a good pace to his game. And when he did get the opportunity to hit those outside shots that were open, he did knock down a couple over the weekend. And Tony Prescott's done a great job developing, Braden, Logan, Brock Bowers, who ends up, who's going to be going to Georgia for football. That was kind of his main core guys that he had in Napa. So we were really happy with how they played. And then the guy that I think is actually going to sneak up on everybody, and has, we've been reaching out to some D1 schools about, just to try and see where we can get him, is Will Heimbrodt from Drake, or High School 1327 now. He is 6'7", 6'6", 6'7", can shoot the three, can get to the rim, can guard posts. He needs to work on guarding, being able to guard the 3 and 4, but I think he can kind of be like a nice stretch for someone down the line, whether it's at a high level D3 school, D2 school, or at a low, high academic D1 school. He's another good student. I think all of our kids are good students. Everybody's over a 3.0. We've got a lot of kids over 3.6. And I think that's kind of been our niche market in the North Bay, is getting the high academic kids and placing them in more high academic schools. We've got about 40 kids playing at the next level, with, most recent guys being Brandon Beckman from Novato, who went to SI, goes to the University of Chicago, Noah Bice, who played in our program forever, at Wentworth Institute of Technology. So I think that these North Bay guys are getting more attention, and that was like one of the main goals that my dad had, was giving these kids more opportunity and more attention from the North Bay. I think we can kind of get overlooked a little bit because we're, that small school kind of area. And I think these guys showed this past weekend that they can compete at a high level, and they can stay in games with high level Division I players. I think they showed that. And we were really happy with how they battled all four of our teams, and we're excited for what's going to be happening moving forward for these guys, and hopefully get these guys recruited, especially these seniors during this hard time, and helping them play basketball at the next level, but then set themselves up to have a good life after basketball as well.
Now, you guys are coming back to Phoenix in November. First off, are there any other tournaments on the schedule kind of similar to this for any of the other teams, or is this kind of taken up on a tournament by tournament basis?
So I think I mentioned this earlier, like these are the only teams playing. We've only got 5 high school teams playing. None of our youth teams are playing. We're just sticking with skill clinics with them. We think that these 5 teams should be playing for recruiting purposes, and trying to get them, some more attention, and some more recruitment, and sending game film out to coaches. They will play probably in Sacramento, one time in between now and the next tournament in Phoenix, just to get them a couple games. And then we'll be back in Phoenix the 20th to the 22nd. We'll be back to 5 teams instead of 4. So Coach Nellon's team will be on, will be their own roster. My team, which will be the seniors, will be its own roster. I think we'll have 7 or 8 on both of those teams, which is a great number. It gets guys a lot of playing time. And then Coach Turner's team will be back with hopefully 8 guys. And then Coach DeMaestri is going to have some other guys as well. A couple other Sonoma County kids, actually. Logan Bailey from Casa will be there. Salim Arakat, who is a very intriguing player at Petaluma High School. Long, has grown probably 3 inches over the year, and can absolutely stroke it from the outside. And then Doug's gonna also get another Sonoma County player in Cole Garzoli, another Petaluma guy. And I think that's another school that has some good pieces that can be successful in that Vine Valley League as well.
Yeah, and they had a good season last year, competed for the league championship. Obviously missed out to Vintage, and I think they ended up tied for second with Sonoma, although I could be wrong on that, just fading memory. Finally, I guess, what do you think the end goal, if you've had kids, like you've said, that have gone from 3rd grade, starting in the program, to now they're going to end up playing through their senior year? Is that ultimate goal to get these guys recruited, or is there, other things that you want to develop in them along the way?
I mean, I think that playing college basketball is not easy. There's a very, very small percentage of kids that end up playing in college. And I think, our program is, yes, we want to try and get our high school kids recruited. We want them to try and play at the next level, but that's not just our decision. That's also their decision. Is that what they want to do? But from our program, 3rd through 8th grade program, we're developing good life skills, trying to teach some leadership, accountability, getting these kids active and playing and moving and getting them away from their devices and things like that. And then setting them up for hopefully playing in high school and having some successful high school careers. I think a lot of kids are very happy with playing high school, having a good career, and then going off to college and studying and being a college student. I think that's a lot of kids, pathway. And then you will get, every once in a while, you'll get a handful, or hopefully 10, our goal is hopefully 10 kids a year, that want to go play college and get them that opportunity to play at the next level. Our program is all encompassing of skill levels and abilities of every kid, whether it's a 3rd grade boy or a 6th grade girl or a high school student that wants to play Division I basketball. We try and serve as much as possible and be as flexible as possible as a program to get kids what they're looking to get out of the program. And I think we've done a good job of that the last 10 years.
And finally, you had mentioned, we also talked about your dad and Doug Donnellan and some of the guys that have coached for a long time. Are there other coaches that maybe aren't directly affiliated with the program, but have been a huge help in developing players, or giving you ideas, or giving other coaches ideas and techniques to use for the program?
Yeah. We have a partner. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we had a satellite program, or a sister program, I guess, if we want to call that, in Miami with Coach Spoelstra of the Heat. I worked for him for 2 years down there. And then we have another partner program with Jeff Fryer, who was one of the main guys at LMU during their run in the late 80s, early 90s. And so, like, we get great ideas off of both of them, and the coaches that we worked with in both, and we currently work with in both areas. I still stay in contact with a lot of the coaches in Miami. And then in this area, I mean, Travis Taylor is a very big influence in the Sonoma County area. And I don't think Zeke would be playing for us right now without Travis recommending him to us. He's recommended other players in the past that have gone to Windsor. And I think we have a really good partnership and relationship with Travis. And other coaches that we haven't really talked about much, but Mike Washington from Rancho, he's been a big part in growing our program in Sonoma County and helping Madison. And I think his Rancho program is getting better every year. I think they surprised a lot of people last year. I don't think people were expecting that last year. And I think he's done a good job at Rancho. And then you've got Tony Prescott and the vintage coach.
Ben Gongora.
Yeah, Ben, and you have the new Napa coach, Ali Thomas. Those are three really good guys that know the game of basketball, and are going to help develop kids in that area. Coach Granucci, Dave Granucci from Justin, has been a help as well with Tony in our program. And I think we're seeing basketball getting much better in the North Bay area and being much more competitive in that area. And then lastly, Nick Jacopi has done a really good job in Petaluma. He's a basketball name in that city. And I think just overall, like, they're just because they don't coach with us, a lot of the guys I mentioned do coach with us, but Travis has his express program, and I think Dave Granucci does a lot of stuff with his Justin kids. But just because we don't have guys that coach with us, they still are good relationships to have. They do a good job developing players, and we all find ways to work together, whether that's through tournaments, or setting up scrimmages, or Travis recommending players to us, all that kind of stuff. Like, we've done a good job of hopefully making the North Bay basketball environment one cohesive environment, not separate entities.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and I do think that the game has grown definitely in the area, and the competition, like you said, is starting to rise. So, Brock, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing what's ahead for NBBA in the future.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully I'll see you next time in Arizona.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, talk soon.
Yeah.